Welcome back, everyone. Before we dive in, be sure to drop your thoughts, feelings, and lessons in the comments below. Like the video and subscribe so you never miss stories like this. Let's get into it. The cruelest thing my wife did was call our marriage a pause button, take a solo reset vacation with her ex, then come home 13 days later expecting my house and my dignity to still be waiting. Here's how it happened. My name is Everett Rains, 36, black, raised in Hyattsville, Maryland, and trained to stay steady. I believe patience could outlast disrespect. I was wrong. When her rideshare stopped at the curb, her suitcase rolled up my walkway, and if her sale sign stood in my yard, I didn't feel rage. I felt precision, and she felt it too. After my mother passed, I started living by rituals. Kettle first, jazz low, notebook open, then a check of what matters, bills, locks, deadlines, and my temperature inside. I work county procurement in Prince George's County, where every promise needs paperwork and every delay costs money. Structure keeps me from spiraling. Our split level in Bowie was part of that structure. Mortgage on autopay, lawn trimmed on Saturdays, and dinner cooking even after late meetings. My wife, Celine Draper Rains, a black woman, preferred beauty and control. She liked soft lighting, scented candles, and being believed when it suited her. Celine's lies had texture. When she lied, her acrylic nails tapped a 3-beat rhythm on glass. Then her eyes flicked upward like the ceiling could approve the story. She also hummed when she felt untouchable, a melody that made her seem relaxed while she hid things. The first crack was small, a dinner receipt from a restaurant she claimed she despised. The second was a password change on our streaming account, followed by a shrug. I translated those moments into stress and told myself marriage includes seasons. Meanwhile, her warmth cooled into something transactional, like a contract I didn't sign. In public, Celine was in the sunlight, laughing at cookouts, hugging my aunties, complimenting strangers in checkout lines. In private, she kept score. Missed one date night, and it lived for months. I worked late, and she called me married to a spreadsheet. When irritated, she straightened picture frames with sharp little flicks like she could align life by force. I ignored that habit the way I ignored her fading curiosity about my day. Pride made me quiet. Fear made me agreeable. That part is mine. Still, none of that excused Curtis crossing my threshold ever. 3 years earlier, break-ins hit our street, so I installed cameras. Celine complained about ugly angles and tech clutter because she loved candlelight and curated corners. I loved verified doors. Most cameras were obvious, but one extra lens went inside a hollow decorative book on the shelf she insisted on buying near Largo Town Center. It faced the entry and hallway. It looked like decor. It was recorded like the truth. I never mentioned that lens again. I told myself it was safety, not suspicion, until Celine gave it purpose. The vacation idea arrived in early October, when the maples turned rusty and rain stayed in the forecast. Celine placed the plan on the table like a gift. "I need space, Everett," she said. "Just me. No questions." Her nails tapped the water glass while she smiled. She claimed she booked a wellness retreat overseas because she felt managed. I washed dishes and asked one question anyway. "Who suggested this?" She laughed too quickly. "Nobody." Then she straightened a picture frame that wasn't crooked, like the house needed fixing more than her story did today. Later that night, her laptop stayed open on the couch, not careless, just confident. An email preview showed an itinerary, 2 seats, 2 names, 1 return date. Hers and Curtis win. Curtis was the ex she called ancient history, the man whose number supposedly stayed blocked. I forwarded the message to myself and closed the lid exactly as it was. Anger didn't arrive first. He did, slow and stomach deep. I lay beside her breathing and accepted that trust can die quietly. I chose evidence over improvisation. A speech would let her perform. Paperwork would let me leave with sanity intact later. The next morning, Celine moved through the house like a woman checking out of a hotel. She sprayed perfume she never wore to work, packed outfits on hangers, and hummed an old R&B chorus. At the door, she kissed my cheek like a coworker, not a husband. Don't be dramatic, she said. I'll be back in less than 2 weeks. I answered, travel safe. She rolled her suitcase to the rideshare and waved like we were fine. I drove to work and sat through meetings with a neutral face while my mind built a framework quietly. On day 3, Curtis entered my living room with a duffel bag and a grin that belonged elsewhere. Celine met him barefoot in the soft gray lounge, said, "She's safe for nights, I worked late." She checked the blinds, then tugged him inside by his sleeve. The hidden bookshelf lens captured everything without romance, without judgment, only time stamps and choices. Celine set her ring on the side table like an accessory. Curtis dropped his bag near our couch. Their laughter filled my house like smoke, and my chest went cold, and my mind stayed sharp enough. Driving home in fury would have given Celine a scene to spin. Calling would have given her a script. I built an exit the way I build procurement files. Dates, totals, signatures, receipts. I pulled mortgage statements showing my down payment. I printed the deed, still in my name because her credit was rough when we bought it. I downloaded phone logs and saved flight confirmations. I created 2 folders, sale and divorce. Each page was a brick. The more bricks I stacked, the less I needed rage. Preparation replaced pleading. That night, I ate alone, washed plates, and slept. On a rainy Tuesday, I met attorney Simone Kersey in Upper Marlborough. Her office smelled like lemon cleaner and old paper, and she spoke in steady sentences that made panic feel childish. I laid out facts, the itinerary, the footage, the ring, the pattern. She asked for dates, not emotions. When I finished, she slid a checklist across her desk. "Quiet preparation beats noisy regret," she said. We discussed separation, finances, and the house. She explained timelines, notices, and what to stop paying immediately. She asked what outcome I wanted. I said, peace, privacy, and no leverage left for her. She nodded once and wrote it down today. Before Celine's flight even landed, I opened a new account in Crofton and redirected my direct deposit. I canceled our shared credit card, moved auto pays to bills I controlled, and built a budget for one person. I changed the garage code, the Wi-Fi password, and the smart lock permissions. I wrote the new codes in my notebook beside grocery lists, because discipline keeps me upright. None of it felt triumphant. It felt like disinfecting a wound. At lunch, I made calls, signed forms, and kept my voice steady. No arguments. No begging. A storage unit in Lanham became my staging area. During lunch breaks and weekends, I moved furniture piece by piece. Couch, side tables, framed photos, her vases, even the pampas grass she treated like trophies. I left the dining table and 4 chairs because I needed a surface for documents, not comfort. I vacuumed, patched nail holes, and boxed everything neatly because I refused to leave chaos behind me. Some nights exhaustion tried to soften my resolve. Then I remembered the gray lounge set, the ring on my side table, and the casual way Curtis set his duffel down like he lived there. I moved 1 more box for now. Celine texted from her healing trip. First, a pool selfie with sunglasses and the caption, "Finally breathing." Second, "Busy, talk later." I didn't reply. I kept my rituals, coffee at dawn, a short jog when anxiety rose, and jazz at night to slow my thoughts. I printed phone records showing Curtis's calls, saved flight confirmations, and copied messages into dated folders. Grief doesn't always cry. Sometimes it organizes. I cooked 1, salmon, rice, and roasted vegetables, then washed 1 plate and set my notebook beside the sink. I slept early, then woke steady, then worked. By day 10, a realtor in Annapolis had the listing draft ready. A photographer took pictures of clean rooms, sunlight on bare floors, and a backyard oak with rust-colored leaves. The house looked bigger without Celine's styling, like it could finally breathe. On the dining table, I arranged evidence neatly. Bank records, itineraries, printed texts, and a sealed bag holding her ring. That ring mattered because betrayal started the night it vanished. Celine told me it slipped off at a spa. It didn't. I found it in her pajama pocket, warm from her hand. The morning Celine returned, frost edged the grass though it was still fall. I ate 2 eggs, drank coffee, and played a saxophone track that keeps my breathing steady. At 9, The realtor's for sale sign arrived, metal stake biting into soil with a soft thud. The listing went live, and the first showing was scheduled. I stayed inside, not hiding, simply choosing timing. Celine loved entrances and controlling first impressions. That day, the yard controlled the first impression. My attorney's filing sat on my phone, stamped and confirmed already. Inside, I waited with the calm that comes after proof. Her rideshare stopped at the curb around noon. Celine stepped out in a beige trench coat and white sneakers, hairstyled like vacation was a crown. The suitcase wheels clicked along the walkway. Then she noticed the sign. Her body froze mid-step. Her phone buzzed, and she stared at the screen without answering. Nails drummed against the suitcase handle in that familiar three-beat rhythm. She swallowed, scanned the yard, and forced a smile that didn't reach her eyes. The smile collapsed anyway. She straightened her coat, glanced at the street for witnesses, and pocketed her phone like it could hide damage. Ms. Odom, our black neighbor, stood on her porch with a cardigan over her arm, watching like an auntie who remembers everything. Celine called to her, voice polite. "Do you know what this is?" Ms. Odom didn't raise her tone. "He knows, baby." Celine's keys slipped from her fingers and clattered on the concrete. She crouched to pick them up, hand trembling. Pride kept her eyes dry, but her breathing went uneven. She hated being seen as uncertain. Ms. Odom's gaze stayed steady, not cruel, just final. Celine muttered a thank you she didn't mean, then marched to the door with her shoulders squared tight again. Celine pushed the front door open and stepped into emptiness. No couch, no accent chairs, no framed photo, bare floors and one dining table under the chandelier. Her suitcase bumped the threshold, and the hollow sound made her pause. "Everett," she called, and her voice echoed against walls that used to absorb our laughter. She moved toward the table and stopped. Papers were arranged neatly, like a case file. In the center sat a clear evidence bag with her ring inside, metal catching light like a warning. She reached for it, then hesitated like touching it would make consequences real. Her breath hitched when she noticed my side of the closet missing too. She picked up the itinerary and read it twice. 2 seats, 2 names, 2 return flights. Her lips moved without sound. Next came printed messages, time-stamped, with her words highlighted. Nails tapped the paper faster, a frantic rhythm. "Why is this here?" she whispered. She lifted the evidence bag, heard the ring tap the plastic, and released a sound that wasn't quite a sob. Her phone buzzed again. Curtis's name lit the screen. She flipped the phone over like it burned. Then she stared at the empty room like it might give her a kinder explanation. She traced my highlighting with a fingertip, then shook her head as if paper could be argued with today. I entered the room quietly. Celine's eyes widened like she was meeting a stranger in her own house. "Explain," she said. "You use this house like a hotel," I replied. "That's not," she started. "The dates are on the footage," I said. Her hand flew to her chest. "You recorded me?" I nodded once. "I secured my property." She stepped closer, reaching for my arm with the familiarity of entitlement. I shifted back half a step. "Everett, please," she said, and her nails tapped her palm. The emptiness behind her made every word louder, like the house agreed with me. Earlier that morning, I texted her one word and a link. Watch. Now her thumb hovered over her phone like it weighed 100 pounds. She pressed play anyway. The clip opened with her in our living room. Gray lounge set on, checking blinds, smiling like a secret. Curtis entered behind her and closed the door like ownership. Her ring came off and landed on the side table like costume jewelry. A duffel bag hit my floor. Laughter followed, muffled behind a couch pillow. Celine whispered, "Turn it off," but she didn't. She stared, then pressed pause, trembling hard. "We can fix this," Celine said, forcing air into her lungs. She glanced toward the window. The for sale sign stood outside like punctuation. "Please don't sell the house." The plea sounded practical, not loving. She wasn't begging for me. She was begging for stability. "You already sold us," I said. Tears rose, but they looked like panic. "Everett, I made a mistake." "You made a schedule," I corrected. Her eyebrows pulled together. "What are you talking about?" I pointed to her suitcase. Open it. Her hand shook, then stopped. On top of her clothes sat an envelope with her name printed neatly. Celine opened it with trembling fingers. Inside was a typed list, plain and precise. Red swimsuit, black swimsuit, perfume labeled midnight, silk robe, anklet with a tiny heart charm, lingerie set, backup makeup kit, travel size birth control, and a hotel key card. Her face tightened. "You went through my things," she said. "You went through our vows," I replied. She pushed aside clothes and found the key card. Her nails stopped tapping, like her body ran out of tricks. Right then, instantly. The card read, Regency Harbor Hotel, Atlanta, room 1408. "I threw this away," Celine whispered. "You did," I said. "At 10:22 p.m., first night." Her eyes snapped up. "How would you know?" "Hotels keep logs," I answered. "Cameras keep time." She dropped the card like it burned and swung toward a fence. "You're cold. You don't talk. You hide behind work." The words carried truth, and that's why they stung. "I should have spoken sooner," I said. "But silence isn't permission to betray me." Her shoulders sagged, and her mouth stayed open longer. She sat down hard, eyes fixed on me. Celine's voice shrank. "So what happens now?" she asked, wiping her cheeks like tears were a spill. I pointed to the table. "Those papers answer that." She skimmed the attorney letter, the listing agreement, and the notice ending her access to my accounts. "You can't," she said, voice climbing. "We're married." "We were married," I replied. "You didn't stumble. You chose." She swallowed. "Where am I supposed to go?" The question landed heavy because the answer was ugly and real. "Your sister offered a couch," I said. She blinked, then nodded, defeated. That first night back, Celine wandered the empty rooms, opening cabinets as if meaning might hide behind doors. The hollowness answered her. She sat on the dining chair and stared at the evidence bag like it might blink first. Her phone buzzed with Curtis again. She silenced it and chewed the inside of her cheek. I stayed in the guest room with a packed duffel because I refused to sleep beside someone who treated vows like costumes. Around midnight, she whispered my name once, softer than a request. I didn't answer. Mercy without boundaries turns into a habit. I kept my door closed. Celine called her sister Nyla and put the phone on speaker, as if volume could bend reality. Nyla's voice came sharp, full of judgment dressed as concern. "Everett, you can't just sell a marital home," she snapped. I didn't argue. The deed argued for me. Celine paced, tapping nails on her phone like a metronome. Nyla suggested counseling, prayer, compromise. Celine nodded like she agreed, then stared at me with a request in her eyes. "Undo it." "Counseling can't rewrite receipts," I said. Nyla went silent, then tried insults, then tried guilt. None of it moved me. Nyla threatened court, hung up when I asked for facts. Pastor Vaughn called the next morning, voice gentle, urging patience and restoration. I respected him, but respect doesn't erase betrayal. "I'm choosing peace," I told him. He offered prayer, accepted it, then ended the call. Celine paced the apartment, nails tapping her phone screen like she could summon a different outcome. She finally answered Curtis, voice low and sharp. "Everett knows," she hissed. Curtis replied without concern. "So what? You'll handle him." The carelessness in his tone made Celine flinch. She wanted romance. He wanted convenience. That was always the deal. She just refused to read it. Celine listened, eyes wet, and for once she heard how little Curtis cared about wrecking us. Reality tightened slowly, not with thunder, but with bills. 2 days later, Celine's card declined at the grocery store when she tried buying food for a house that wasn't hers anymore. She called from the parking lot, angry, then embarrassed. I didn't gloat. I texted a screenshot of the new arrangement. Her paycheck stays hers. My money stays mine. The realtor scheduled showings. Strangers walked through the rooms praising open space and good light. Celine sat on Nyla's couch and refreshed her banking app like it might apologize. I kept the process moving because hesitation is how people like Celine find gaps to exploit. Each compliment buyers felt like a goodbye. I didn't speak. Celine rented a small apartment in Suitland with worn carpet and a heater that clicked all night. She acted like it didn't matter, but her eyes told her. Salon curls became quick buns. Nail sets got shorter because maintenance costs money and pride can't pay rent. Curtis texted, asking for money. Not affection, not apology, just money. She sent it anyway, because denial is expensive. A week later, he asked again. She replied, I can't. He answered, then don't call me. The message landed like a door shutting. Celine stared at her phone until the screen dimmed. She had spent months calling me boring, yet she chased a man who couldn't even fake concern. Her pride cracked, but quietly there. I wasn't innocent. I used quiet to dodge hard conversations, then called it maturity. I worked late and assumed love would hold shape without attention. Owning that didn't excuse Celine. It kept me from becoming lazy with blame. I started therapy in Greenbelt weekly, because discipline without healing becomes a cage. I kept cooking because food grounds me. Shrimp and grits on Sundays, chicken soup on weeknights. I jogged along Sligo Creek Trail on Saturdays, lungs burning, mind clearing. I learned to describe feelings without turning them into accusations. I learned to listen without preparing rebuttals. I also learned that a boundary is not punishment. It is clarity with consequences. I learned to answer texts honestly. Closing came in late November. The buyers were a young couple, both teachers, excited and nervous. Their hope made me careful with my words. I signed papers, handed over keys, and walked out without turning it into theater. The realtor congratulated me. I nodded and kept moving. Celine didn't attend. She said work demanded it. The truth was simpler. Watching the house change hands would have forced her to admit consequences are real. I drove to the storage unit, loaded the last box, and headed to my new apartment in Adelphi. It was smaller, quieter and mine. I made the bed with clean sheets and slept without checking the camera feed. That was the first night my shoulders dropped. Celine's life didn't collapse overnight. It narrowed. Her job noticed missed hours and careless emails. She had used vacation days that didn't match her paperwork, and her manager stopped trusting her explanations. Small mistakes stacked. Late rent, overdraft fees, and a car repair she couldn't postpone. She tried leaning on friends, but people get tired of being emergency contacts for someone who refuses accountability. Curtis stayed gone. Nyla stayed busy. Celine called me once in December, voice tight, asking if I could help temporarily. I said, no, without shouting. She sighed like I was the problem, then hung up. That was Celine's talent, turning consequences into accusations. She blamed luck, never her choices. In January, Celine showed up at my building unannounced, coat too thin for the season, hands clasped like prayer. Her eyes looked older. I didn't think you'd actually do it, she said. I thought you'd wait. Waiting was the old me, I replied. She swallowed. Curtis was a mistake. Curtis was a symptom, I said. Her face tightened. She wanted comfort, not clarity. So that's it? She asked. I nodded. That's it. She tried softening her voice. Everett, we had good years. We did, I agreed. And you spent the last year treating them like they were refundable. Celine stared at me, searching for a crack. I gave her none. I wished her well, but I didn't reopen the door. After she left, the hallway felt still, but not heavy. Peace isn't loud. It doesn't announce victory. It simply removes chaos from the room. I kept my routines and built new ones. On Fridays, I stopped by a diner near Wheaton, ordered salmon and grits, and read a chapter of whatever therapy suggested. I joined a community center book club and learned to speak instead of swallowing everything. On Saturdays, I visited my uncle's barbershop in Riverdale, sat under the hum of clippers, and listened. My promotion came that spring, quiet and earned, because my focus stopped leaking into a marriage that was already gone. I didn't celebrate online. I bought my uncle dinner, paid in cash, and walked home under streetlights that felt kinder. A year later, I drove past the old street on purpose. Curiosity isn't weakness, it's closure. The teachers who bought the house had painted the porch railings bright blue. Curtains moved behind windows that no longer held my memories. The yard looked cared for, not curated. The for sale sign was long gone. At the stop sign, the old ache flickered, then faded. Celine once said she needed space. She got it. I got something better, a life where my boundaries mattered. I didn't hate her. I just refused to make her choices my burden anymore. That refusal became my quiet freedom. People expect a dramatic ending. Like betrayal must be answered with spectacle. My answer stayed smaller. I stopped negotiating with disrespect. I learned that love without accountability becomes a discount store for selfishness. I also learned something uncomfortable. I hid behind work when emotions felt risky. Therapy didn't make me loud. It made me clear. Now, when something hurts, I name it. When someone crosses a boundary, I respond early, not after resentment ferments. I don't collect proof to punish people. I collect clarity to protect myself. Celine taught me that patience without standards becomes permission. I kept my standards, and I kept my peace. Proof matters, yet healing matters more than proof. One night in August, Celine emailed me from a new address. The message was short, typed, and polite. She wrote that she missed the stability, that she was working on herself, and that she hoped I was well. I read it twice, not because I didn't understand, but because I needed to feel the difference between nostalgia and safety. I didn't reply. Silence can be avoidance, but it can also be closure. I forwarded the email to my attorney, closed my laptop, and took a late walk along the Anacostia River Trail. The air smelled like wet leaves and distant traffic. I listened to my own footsteps and let them be enough. If this story has a moral, it isn't trust nobody. It's trust wisely and verify what you can without losing your soul. I didn't win by humiliating Celine in public. I won by choosing a quiet exit, protecting my finances, and rebuilding my voice. She came home expecting the same man, patient, pliable, willing to wait. Instead, she met a man who put a price on peace and refused to bargain it away. The for sale sign was not revenge. It was a boundary made visible. I kept my life private, and I kept moving forward with steady breath. If this kind of quiet karma hits you in the chest, drop one word in the comments: precision. And if you want the next story where the truth is already documented before the betrayal even finishes, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. The end.